Good morning, everyone. We decided that rather than each of us getting to the podium, that Carol and I would speak from these chairs. So that's why I'm seated, not because I'm being disrespectful to you. I want to say good morning. And Paul and your team, thank you all so much for the opportunity for me to join you. As Siva shared, I am a new board member, just coming to the board in January of 2014. Carol joked and said, long time. Not a long-time board member, but a long-time acquaintance and supporter of the International Baccalaureate. Since I've been on the board, I have been incredibly energized and inspired by the group of individuals who are so deeply committed to the mission of the IB who serve with me on that board. They are committed to ensuring that the core principles of the organization are honored, but at the same time are committed to ensuring that we look forward and become more forward-thinking and realistic in regard to the current international educational landscape and our need to be strategic and agile in that space. As Siva said, I serve Hanover County as superintendent of schools. Our district is located just south of here in central Virginia. We serve about 18,000 young people in 4 high schools, 4 middle schools, and 15 elementary schools. We offer International Baccalaureate at all 4 of our high schools, in addition to offering, dare I say it here, advanced placement as well, and dual enrollment. We do that because our board has a deep commitment to ensuring that all of our students have all options available to them regardless of where they live. That is our context. As I've reflected on IB over the last nearly 20 years, pains me to say that, but nearly 20 years, and as I'm with individuals talking about IB and considering IB, it strikes me that context is so very important. Because my context in Hanover County is not the same context of Fairfax. It is not the same context of schools that are in Buenos Aires. It is not the same context of schools that are in Dubai. And so the importance of recognizing context and how we as an organization which spans and supports all of those contextual realities is very important. Over the last 3 days, I've listened quite intently to your conversations and the questions which have been focused on issues like the imperative to honor the core principles of IB as we look toward the organization's future. I've heard you talk about the realities of the cost of the IB and practical questions about how we provide funding for children for whom this program is absolutely necessary. You've talked about the unique ability of IB to provide access and opportunity for all children. I've also heard you express the need to articulate the value of the IB to the entire education community in a way that resonates with all. What I've heard you say is just what Siva has described in the 5 strategic themes. So that alignment as a board member is very important. Siva introduced us as board members to the strategic direction, the outlined strategic direction in April. And so now being here and hearing your questions and your conversations allows me as a board member, and I'm sure Carol as our chair of the board, to be able to say to the rest of the group of 18, we are moving in the right direction. And that is kudos to Siva. But it's also kudos to you as leaders, as teachers, who find your voice, which is in fact what we do with IB, is it not? We teach our students to find their voices and then to express them in a way that articulates and resonates with all. If you were in Siva's update session yesterday, she asked the question, if you were me, what would you focus on, or what would you have been focusing on over these last 6 months? The affirming thought about those responses to her questions was that attendees, you all, referenced in some form or another each of the themes. As a board member, I am encouraged that we are doing the right work, that the staff has heard your input and are focused on moving in the direction that will advance IB. I'm also encouraged that Siva and her team are determined to see the organization from different perspectives and vantage points. I said to someone earlier that being a leader is somewhat like being one who's schizophrenic. And I say that tongue in cheek, but it's true. Because we as leaders have to think about our decisions and our organizations from all points of view. From the teacher's point of view, from the parent's point of view, from a heads of school's point of view, from a superintendent's point of view, from a principal. Do you understand what I mean? And so in order to really understand, we must get into the heads of those that we serve, and Siva and the team are doing that. In fact, she's talked about this notion of outside in versus inside out. And this team also, of course, is committed to ensuring that all of us have our needs met, the result of which will be that the ecosystem of IB thrives. Siva, thank you for your leadership. And thanks to you all for believing in the mission of International Baccalaureate. And thank you for the opportunity to share my thoughts with you. Carol?
I love Jamel's teacher's voice. We can hear her at the board meetings. A quick word from me on the board and a quick word on a little bit on strategy. So let me, you all have boards, I'm sure, or you have your thoughts about boards. Having been both a CEO and a board chair in wearing different hats, I have some strong feelings about boards as well. And I like to try and keep a balance so the board doesn't stick its nose into the places it shouldn't, because management is management and board is board. But nevertheless, there are obviously critical roles that the board plays. We have to assure the financial stability and security of the organization. Clearly, the choice of a leader of the organization is something that a board is responsible for, and this board has gone through that process in the selection of Siva as the Director General. We did a global search. It was a broad-based, long, very competent, I think, global search, and delighted that we stayed home, but it was a search around the world. And strategy is another area. We are 18, as Jamel mentioned. About 8 or 9 years ago, the board moved from being a representational board, and by that it was geographically representational, to becoming what I would call a global board. It is very diverse geographically in terms of representation, but people aren't there just specifically because they're representing the Middle East or they're representing North America. They are there as a member of a global institution. We obviously have educators on the board. Everybody has a connection to the IB. We have educators on the board. We have a requirement for a certain number of heads of school on the board. But again, as the IB is evolving, and as Siva was reminding you, we have all different kinds of schools. We now have systems that we're working with. The representation from educators needs to be as broad as the institution is becoming these days. We also have business people on the board. We have people with foundational and nonprofit backgrounds, accounting and finance. We are lacking, actually, at this point, so we're still looking for a good board member. We're lacking a little bit more depth in terms of technology. As you might expect, nobody's a digital native on our board. We can spell it, but that's about as far as we've gone. Much of the focus of the board over the last few years, again, no surprise, has actually been on the organization, because the organization has gone through such quite a dramatic reorganization, and no movement from the mission. The passion has to be there. But again, as the world is changing fast, as the organization is changing, as we've established the 3 global centers in The Hague, in Bethesda, and in Singapore, continuing with the good teams in Cardiff and Geneva as well. I just visited the Geneva team about 2 weeks ago. We've had to focus a lot on organization. We are happily, I would say, not ignoring that, and also happily in pretty good financial situation. You know, we're not rolling in dough, but I'm happy that having gone through all this organizational change, actually the organization is quite stable financially. But I think very much looking forward to more attention on the strategy and the education side. Again, not to run it, but nevertheless to help set strategy. So my comment on strategy is you've heard from Siva in terms of the themes, you've had discussions, her session yesterday, other sessions, but we welcome input because this is not set in stone yet. The board will be meeting actually at the end of this month, very specifically for I hate the word retreat, but whatever, for a move forward around the issue of strategy. Strategies have to be living documents as well, not just documents, they have to be living engines. But we welcome your comments, we welcome your criticism, we welcome your advice and suggestion, because you're the ones on the front lines and you're the ones who really understand and have a sense of where we should be heading. So I think I'll stop at that point and also be good. Oh, and now we're looking for a new chair, if you have any recommendations on that as well. I have been happily the chair for, this is my 6th year, and the board is engaged in a search at this point. We serve for 3-year terms. Oh, that's like one other thing I'm going to say. So the board's been very stable, frankly, with about 1 or 2 people at most moving on, completing their 6 years. It's 2 3-year terms. But it's going through some very, very significant change as the institution is going through change. This particular year, of the 18, we have 5 new board members, and 5 members will rotate off next year. So in the course of 2 years, we will have 10 new board members. Now, you've seen in Jamel, my God, we're doing great. We're getting great board members and great diversity. But as the institution, and as this world is changing rapidly, the board is changing quite rapidly as well. Everyone, though, I think, very much committed to this incredible organization and making sure that indeed we continue to make an enormous difference in this world. Thank you.